This is a strategic disaster. Harry, you can't preach about how you're giving your children space out of the public eye while your wife has just posted another picture of them, photoshopped to sell a candle named after them, while also revealing a full-on face shot of the child as a baby. So you can't preach when you're doing the exact thing you claim to be so bad.
There's a man living in Mexico who has never heard his grandson's voice. He's never sat in the same room with him, never watched him grow up, and never got to know the little things that make a child who they are. He doesn't know what makes the boy laugh, what scares him at night, or what dreams he talks about for the future. He has no idea whether his grandson is shy or outgoing. He doesn't know if he inherited his mother's determination or another softer side from somewhere else in the family. All those normal family moments that most grandparents take for granted reportedly never happened here. But Thomas Markle still knows exactly when his grandson's birthday is, because like everyone else online, he finds out through Instagram posts and carefully shared photos. He watches from a distance through a screen, just like millions of strangers scrolling social media every day. Thomas Markle is now 80 years old. His grandson Archie recently turned 7, and during all those years, Thomas has reportedly never been allowed to become part of the child's everyday life. Since Archie was first introduced to the world in those Windsor Castle photos, the separation between grandfather and grandson has only become more noticeable. No visits, no family holidays, no returned letters, no private afternoons together away from cameras and headlines.
Do you still love your daughter?
Of course I do. I love my children. I love my other daughter. I love my son. Of course I love them.
Yeah.
Hi, Daddy. I got an English award.
And
The way that she talked to my father, he knew it was over. He didn't know his daughter anymore because she talked down to him like he was nothing.
I'll be very disappointed that I don't get to hold my granddaughter.
Does it hurt?
Of course it hurts.
Where is Daddy? Well, I gotta zoom back on you.
Or push that button into Mac.
In my opinion, she would still be a waitress if it wasn't for...
Not even one simple moment where Thomas could know his grandson beyond carefully managed public images. For years, he has openly questioned why things became this distant. Whenever Thomas spoke publicly about the situation, backlash followed quickly. Critics called him bitter, unreliable, and accused him of chasing attention. But around Archie's 7th birthday, many online started pointing out that several of the concerns Thomas raised over the years suddenly seemed impossible to ignore. The birthday posts sparked major discussion online. People analyzed every detail, from the photos themselves to the timing of other media stories happening at the exact same moment. Some social media users questioned whether certain images looked heavily edited or overly polished, while others focused on how private family moments continue to become huge public events.
Here's the deal. I am not mad at any photoshopping because, as we've seen already, Meghan is completely inauthentic. Her only authenticity is in her inauthenticity, if you will.
These pictures, which all appear to be artificially altered in some ways. This is just what we expect from you. This is just what we expect.
Another detail that got attention fast involved candles reportedly linked to important family birth dates, including the grandchildren's birthdays, being sold for $64 each. Critics online called it strange and overly commercialized, while supporters defended it as part of a lifestyle brand. Either way, people kept talking about it everywhere. Then came another headline-making moment. A magazine briefing criticizing King Charles reportedly appeared the same day as Archie's birthday tribute, and many royal watchers immediately started debating whether the timing was intentional. Online discussions exploded with theories, reactions, and non-stop arguments about what was really going on behind the scenes. For many people watching everything unfold, the bigger issue became the growing feeling that even emotional family moments now arrive wrapped in publicity, branding, and carefully controlled image management. Supporters argue it's about privacy and protection. Critics believe it all feels too calculated. The birthday post itself became the center of attention. 2 photographs were shared that day. The first showed newborn Archie asleep on his father's chest shortly after birth, an intimate family moment suddenly shared with millions online. The second image showed both children from behind walking through shallow water with a dramatic mountain view in front of them. Their faces were completely hidden, making them unrecognizable to anyone who didn't already know who they were.
Let's start with Harry's hair, shall we? First of all, we all know that the reason why the royals can't go on Rogaine and other stuff is, they're worried about children and all that stuff, but they're past childbearing years. I don't understand. There's no shame in that game to go to Turkey and do what, everyone else has done and get some hair put in. If that's the look you're going for, just take a nice trip to Istanbul, come back with a full head of hair, and people will keep it moving. Instead, your wife wants to fluff it up a bit. It's kind of ridiculous. Meghan is completely inauthentic.
She is very clever. Her problem is she's not clever enough. She lacks self-awareness. She doesn't realize she's too clever. That is a terrible dilemma to be in, that not recognizing your own limitations.
Some people praised the privacy, while others said the mystery only increases public fascination around the children. The caption simply read, 7 years later, happy birthday to our sweet boy. Warm words, emotional tone, polished presentation. But online, many people immediately questioned whether the moment felt truly personal or carefully managed for public attention.
There are axe murderers in prison. Their family comes to see them. I'm not an axe murderer. I made one dumb mistake.
And yet, only hours after the birthday post went live, people who closely follow this family started spotting details they felt didn't quite make sense. Online discussions exploded fast, especially around one thing in particular, Harry's hair. In the newborn photo, Harry's hairline appeared noticeably fuller and thicker than what people remembered seeing. Around the actual time Archie was born, social media users quickly began pulling up older archive photos and side-by-side comparisons. The internet turned into a full investigation within minutes. According to many online observers, the version of Harry shown in the image looked far different from public photos taken during that same period. Some critics became convinced the photo had been digitally enhanced to make his hair appear stronger and more complete than it actually was at the time. Whether true or not, the speculation spread everywhere online. But the hair discussion wasn't the only thing getting attention. Commentators also pointed to other details in the photos, including claims that one of Lilibet's arms appeared oddly proportioned in a certain shot. Others questioned whether the children's coloring matched previous family pictures released publicly before. Every tiny detail suddenly became part of a massive online debate. Then people immediately started comparing the situation to the huge controversy surrounding Princess Catherine's edited Mother's Day photograph not long ago. That situation became absolute chaos in the media. News outlets across the world spent days analyzing every pixel of the image, demanding answers, asking for original files, and pushing non-stop theories about what was supposedly being hidden. The reaction became so intense that headlines treated one edited family photo like it was some massive royal scandal. And at the time, Catherine was reportedly dealing privately with a serious illness she had not yet publicly shared. Even so, the criticism kept coming from every direction, and many people later described the media response as completely excessive and deeply unfair. But when the Archie birthday photos appeared, the tone felt completely different.
Harry and Meghan have nothing to do with fair play. In the very beginning, when they first arrived, they had kind of asked fair play, like, hey, we might be interested with Archwell and whatnot. And guess what happened? They never followed up. And in fact, people at Fair Play kind of realized what they wanted was money to go through Archwell to go to Fair Play. They gave absolutely no support, but at the same time, they like to take all the credit. Meghan is all about supporting Meghan. She claims that she has supported women for years, and now it's finally time to stand up for herself. Show me the women that you've supported, girlfriend.
Instead of aggressive investigations or demands for explanations, many major outlets published warm stories praising Meghan as a loving and devoted mother. No major media organization publicly demanded the original photos. Nobody seriously questioned why Harry's hair looked dramatically different from real-life photos taken around that same time. For many critics online, the contrast felt impossible to ignore. They argued the difference in treatment between the two situations was massive, obvious, and repeated over and over again. To them, it wasn't just about edited pictures anymore. It became another example of what they believed was a clear double standard in how certain royal figures are covered by the media. Thomas Markle himself has never claimed anything extreme about the children or suggested anything sinister about their existence. What he has repeatedly said in interviews, however, is that his daughter carefully manages the image she presents to the public. According to Thomas, there is often a noticeable gap between the polished version shown publicly and what reality may actually look like behind the scenes. Originally, Thomas was mostly speaking about their personal relationship and the way media coverage was handled. But when people saw discussions online about Harry's allegedly enhanced hairline appearing in a birthday photo, while the couple continued presenting themselves as more authentic and open than the royal institution they left behind, critics felt that contradictions suddenly became much harder to ignore. And for many people watching online, that gap between image and reality started standing out more than ever. But the photo controversy was only part of the story. Because while social media was busy debating edited images and media double standards, another detail connected to Archie's birthday started raising eyebrows too: the commercial side of everything. In the days leading up to Archie's birthday, Meghan's lifestyle brand released a special Mother's Day collection. Right at the center of that launch were two candles that immediately became a major talking point online. The products at the center of the discussion were called Signature Candle number 506 and Signature Candle number 604. The numbers weren't random either. Supporters quickly noticed that 506 appeared connected to Archie's birthday, the 5th month and 6th day, while 604 matched Lilibet's birthday, the 6th month and 4th day. Each candle reportedly sold for $64, instantly turning them into another huge online talking point.
Brooklyn Beckham was supposedly seeking counsel from these two, right?
Yeah.
And Harry and Meghan were like, we understand what it's like to be traumatized by your family. But Brooklyn had come out and said, I was monetized from day one. And, you know, he was really upset that his parents basically owned his name, all this stuff. Well, guess what? Meghan and Harry own their kids' names. They own the domain names, they own the emails, they own everything else.
Kris Jenner hadn't liked any Meghan Markle social media pictures since last year. And then we get this less than a week later. This is no coincidence. And another example of how Meghan obsesses over her media coverage and claps back as much as...
But what really caught people's attention was the timing. Around the same moment Archie's birthday tribute was being shared across social media to millions of followers, an email reportedly went out to the lifestyle brand's full subscriber list, encouraging customers to buy the candles. Online critics immediately started connecting the dots. Then another detail made the conversation even louder. One of the first accounts to publicly interact with the birthday post was reportedly the brand's own commercial page. That single move sparked a wave of reactions online because critics argued it made the entire birthday tribute feel less personal and more like part of a coordinated marketing campaign. People began asking the same question everywhere: when does a family moment stop being private and start becoming branded content? Journalist Tom Sykes summed up the criticism in a way that spread quickly online. According to him, the birthday post wasn't really just a birthday post at all. It functioned as content designed to drive attention, engagement, and traffic toward the business launch happening at the exact same time. And for many royal watchers, that criticism hit especially hard because it brought back the exact arguments Harry and Meghan originally made when they stepped away from royal duties years ago. At the time, they explained that they wanted to protect their family from the non-stop pressure, publicity, and commercial side of royal celebrity life. They spoke openly about wanting privacy, distance from cameras, and the freedom to raise their children outside the constant spotlight. Harry especially talked many times about how difficult it was growing up surrounded by media attention and public scrutiny. He said he didn't want his children treated like public property or turned into products for headlines and attention. Over the years, Harry has also spoken strongly about the dangers social media can create for children. He attended public events, participated in discussions, and warned parents to be cautious about sharing images of kids online. He talked about artificial intelligence, digital risks, and how once photos are placed online, nobody truly controls where they go afterward or how they might eventually be used. He presented himself as someone trying to protect children from the exact pressures he personally experienced growing up in public view. That's why critics immediately focused on the contradiction they believed they were seeing during Archie's birthday rollout. To them, it felt difficult to reconcile warnings about online exposure with highly public family posts, arriving side by side with commercial promotions.
Just acknowledge the reality of the fact that there's some really evil, wicked people at the heart of this who want to farm our children's mindset and market it for themselves. There is no free will on social media as it stands. And people turn around to me, these parents turn around and say, people, surely we can learn from the mistakes of the past. I said, mistakes to who? Because to the social media companies, it wasn't mistakes.
Harry and mostly Meghan, it seems, are actually really obsessed with the titles. Meghan and Harry care a lot about those titles, and they say that they don't, but they clearly.
And despite all the online noise, another detail involving Thomas Markle quietly resurfaced again. Over the years, several lawyers reportedly approached him offering free legal help to pursue grandparent visitation rights involving Archie and Lilibet. According to public reports, Thomas refused every single offer. That decision surprised many people because after years of public family tension, some assumed he would eventually take legal action. But instead, he reportedly chose not to push the conflict into court, even while continuing to publicly express sadness over never being part of his grandchildren's lives. Thomas Markle explained his decision very clearly over the years. He said he refused to take legal action because he did not want the children turned into tools in a family battle. In his view, using kids as leverage in a public conflict was simply wrong, no matter how hurt or frustrated he felt about the situation. According to Thomas, dragging Archie and Lilibet into court would only place more pressure and attention on them, and he reportedly wanted no part in that. Instead, he said he would wait patiently and hope that one day, when the children were older, they might choose to reach out on their own. 7 years later, he still appears to be standing by that decision. At the same time, Archie's 7th birthday became surrounded by more headlines than ever. A candle linked to his birth date was reportedly being sold for $64. Online debates about branding were exploding everywhere, and Harry was once again speaking publicly about parenting and family life. But according to critics, the biggest controversy wasn't even the candles. It was the media messaging happening behind the scenes. Around Archie's birthday, a major American celebrity outlet published a glowing feature focused on Harry as a father. The publication has previously been linked publicly to stories involving the Sussex team, with executives reportedly acknowledging communication with people connected to Harry and Meghan in the past. Because of that history, royal watchers immediately paid close attention to the timing and wording of the article. On the surface, the piece looked like a warm and emotional portrait about Harry raising his children differently from how he grew up. It praised his parenting style, described him as thoughtful and intentional, and emphasized his focus on giving his children freedom to develop their own identities away from intense public pressure. The article also referenced Harry speaking during a recent public appearance, where he reportedly described his children as his upgrade and talked about how parenting changes over time. He emphasized growth, learning, and trying to do better as a parent. Publicly, the language sounded calm, reflective, and positive. But critics quickly argued there was another message underneath the polished wording.
There's a huge hypocrisy here given Catherine, Catherine suffering from cancer was hauled over the coals, especially in the American mainstream media. It was like she was the devil incarnate. Yet Meghan sort of posts these pictures which all appear to be artificially altered in some ways. Can we just start with Harry's hair? Even in 2018, he didn't have hair like that. So definitely the hair has been made fuller. But
Yes.
It's the actual pictures of the children which are always so weird.
Harry and Meghan should be shaking in their boots right now if they are not already. And they could have had the best of all worlds if they had played their cards right. But this was a route Harry and Meghan decided to go down where they trashed their family. And this is the result.
The article repeatedly highlighted Harry's difficult experience growing up under constant media attention as the younger son of the future king. And while the piece avoided openly attacking King Charles, many readers felt the comparison was impossible to miss. The article insisted there was no judgment and no blame, but critics online argued the entire structure of the story quietly delivered, both anyway. To them, the message felt obvious. Harry was presenting himself as the father who learned from past mistakes, while indirectly suggesting Charles failed in some of those same areas years earlier. That's what made the timing stand out even more. The story landed during a week when King Charles had reportedly just completed a very successful state visit to the United States. By most public measures, the visit had gone extremely well. He received warm reactions, positive media coverage, and renewed attention from audiences who had become less enthusiastic about the monarchy in recent years. For supporters of the royal family, the contrast felt deliberate. Just as Charles was receiving praise internationally, another wave of headlines suddenly shifted focus back toward Harry's personal story, his parenting image, and his long-running criticism of royal life. Online debates exploded once again over whether these moments were naturally unfolding or carefully timed media strategy. And because the article arrived right alongside Archie's birthday coverage, many critics argued the celebration itself became tied once again to publicity battles, image management, and deeper tensions inside the royal family that still refused to disappear. The media coverage surrounding King Charles during that period was surprisingly positive. His public appearances were receiving warm reactions, headlines were supportive, and many people felt the monarchy had regained some momentum in the public eye. But right in the middle of that wave of goodwill, another story suddenly shifted attention back toward family tensions inside the royal circle. The article centered around Harry's parenting style and strongly suggested that his own difficult upbringing shaped the way he now raises his children. While the piece never directly attacked King Charles, many readers felt the message underneath was impossible to miss. Critics argued the story quietly framed Charles as the example of what Harry did not want to become as a father. That's why many people immediately remembered comments Thomas Markle made in past interviews that had shocked royal watchers at the time. Thomas drew a direct comparison between himself and King Charles, saying both men shared the same painful reality. They were both grandfathers who had reportedly been denied meaningful access to Archie and Lilibet. According to Thomas, every time he sees Charles on television, he feels a strange connection because both of them are watching their grandchildren grow up from far away.
The whole world, especially America, is really loving King Charles after that state visit. Not only is this man delusional, he is scummy. Like, this is not the time for another attack on King Charles. But Harry, you can't preach about how you're giving your children space out of the public eye while your wife has just posted another picture of them.
This is what happens to them all the time. I will never get over it.
This is just what we expect from you, Meghan. Posts these pictures which all appear to be artificially altered.
Her only authenticity is in her inauthenticity. We all know that.
One man lives in a palace surrounded by royal tradition. The other lives quietly in Mexico, but both are reportedly experiencing the same emotional distance. Two grandfathers, two completely different worlds. Yet both looking at birthday photos online instead of spending real time with the children themselves. That comparison struck many people hard because, regardless of public opinion on either man, the image of grandparents separated from family resonated emotionally with audiences online. But critics argued there was one major difference between the two situations. Around Archie's birthday, King Charles also became tied to a media narrative that many felt painted him as the failed parent responsible for Harry's emotional struggles growing up. For royal supporters, that timing felt especially harsh, given Charles's reported health challenges and ongoing efforts to repair family relationships behind closed doors. Reports over the past few years have repeatedly suggested that Charles has made attempts toward reconciliation and would like the chance to spend more time with his grandchildren while he still can. That's why some observers viewed the article's release during such a sensitive period as particularly damaging and deeply personal. At the same time, many people also argue it's important to speak honestly and fairly about Thomas Markle himself. Even his supporters acknowledge he is far from perfect. Before the royal wedding, he admitted to staging paparazzi photographs, a decision that caused major embarrassment and became global news almost instantly. Over the years, he has also given multiple interviews to the press, sometimes speaking publicly about private family matters in ways many people believe only increased tensions further. Critics say he talked too much, trusted the media too easily, and helped create the public image problems that still follow him today. And because of those mistakes, many people immediately dismiss anything Thomas says, before even considering whether parts of it might contain truth. His reputation became messy, emotional, and controversial long ago, but according to supporters, when it comes to one specific issue, the careful management of public image and the way family moments are presented to the world, Thomas Markle's warnings have often ended up looking surprisingly accurate over time. That's what continues making this situation so uncomfortable for many royal watchers. Even people who strongly disagree with Thomas sometimes admit that several patterns he described years ago now seem much harder to ignore than they once did. Years ago, Thomas Markle publicly said he believed Archie and Lilibet were being treated like pawns in larger family and media conflicts. At the time, many people brushed those comments aside or dismissed them completely. But he continued repeating the same concern over and over again in interviews. According to Thomas, the children were reportedly being separated not only from grandparents, but also from cousins, extended relatives, and the wider family connections that often help children understand their background and identity as they grow older.
Turning Archwell Foundation into Archwell Philanthropies, they said it was for a family thing so that their children could be involved. And around that time, they got the Prince and Princess titles. I mean, it's great. Everyone hopes that their children would like to be charitable and philanthropic, but what if they don't want to be? What if they want to do something else? And it's just very much going in the vein of doing exactly what happened to Harry for monetization for Meghan. Harry's not quite smart enough to put two and two together.
He questioned what that kind of isolation could eventually mean for them emotionally later in life. Thomas also spoke about worrying how the children might one day feel when they become old enough to look back on their childhoods and fully understand the public battles, media strategies, and family decisions that surrounded them before they were ever old enough to have a voice in any of it. In one interview, he even said he feared there could come a time when Archie and Lilibet might feel they had been exploited. At the time those comments were made, many mainstream outlets portrayed Thomas as bitter, resentful, and desperate for attention. Most people focused more on his reputation than the actual warning he was trying to give. But then came the birthday controversies again. A candle linked to Archie's birth date was promoted through a commercial email campaign on the same day as his birthday post. Harry participated in media coverage many critics felt indirectly framed King Charles as an example of poor parenting, and online debates exploded over whether some photographs had been edited or carefully enhanced. For Thomas Markle's supporters, those events suddenly made his old comments sound far less exaggerated than they once did. They argued he wasn't speaking emotionally or randomly when he used the word pawns. He was describing what he believed was a repeated pattern, relationships and family moments becoming part of larger public image strategies. Thomas has suggested before that he personally experienced this dynamic during his relationship with Meghan. According to him, people remained close when they were useful to the public image being built, but once conflict appeared or priorities changed, relationships were pushed aside. Quickly and completely. Whether people agree with Thomas or not, critics online pointed out that the birthday coverage once again placed the children directly in the middle of branding discussions, publicity debates, and royal family tensions. To many observers, it became difficult to separate the personal family moments from the media strategy surrounding them. And there's another point Thomas has repeatedly made over the years that continues standing out to many people. He often described the situation not as dramatic or shocking, but as simply cruel, quietly cruel. Not the kind of cruelty that creates one giant headline for a single day, but the slow kind that builds over time. An elderly man growing older without ever meeting the grandchildren connected to him by blood, watching them grow up through filtered Instagram photos instead of real memories, knowing birthdays, milestones, and family moments only because they appear online for the public to see. For many people following this story, that image remains one of the saddest parts of the entire situation. Regardless of public arguments, royal politics, or media strategy, the reality of grandparents and grandchildren growing up as strangers continues to leave a lasting emotional reaction, with audiences watching from the outside.
Is sticking around because she may or may not be writing a book, and she wants the exclusive. Then she talks about Nicole. Well, Nicole is a lovely, lovely woman. Nicole is not the type to burn a bridge, nor is she the type to say, "I hate you, go away." She might think it, but she would not do it. Do they see each other, smile, and do air kisses and hugs? I am absolutely positive. Do they talk on the regular? That's a hell no.
The word cruel often gets buried underneath the much louder public fights surrounding Harry and Meghan, but for many people following this story closely, that word still matters the most. Because when you step back from the endless headlines, social media battles, and royal drama, the situation starts looking less like isolated controversies and more like a repeating pattern that critics, including Thomas Markle, have been describing for years. Around the same time as Archie's birthday coverage, another major story quietly started gaining attention in Britain. A well-connected journalist published a detailed report claiming that several of Meghan's high-profile American connections were allegedly beginning to distance themselves behind the scenes. These were people publicly linked to Meghan for years, celebrities photographed with her, public supporters of her projects, and figures many assumed were firmly connected to her circle. According to the report, some relationships were reportedly cooling off privately even while public appearances still looked polished and supportive. The article quickly started spreading online because it included specific claims and reportedly strong sourcing. Then something interesting happened only days later. One of the exact public figures mentioned in that report suddenly posted a glowing endorsement of Meghan's Mother's Day candles on social media. The post appeared warm, friendly, and supportive, presenting the candles almost like a heartfelt recommendation from a close friend. But critics online immediately noticed the timing. The endorsement appeared right in the middle of a long stream of promotional posts tied to that celebrity's own business projects and family brands. To royal watchers already suspicious about media strategy, the entire thing felt extremely coordinated rather than spontaneous. That's the larger pattern critics say keeps repeating around the Sussex brand. A negative story starts gaining traction, questions begin spreading online, and then suddenly another carefully timed positive moment appears to push the narrative in a different direction. Supporters see smart media management. Critics see calculated image control. In this case, the sequence of events became especially noticeable because King Charles had reportedly just finished a stretch of extremely positive coverage and growing public goodwill. His public appearances were landing well, headlines were favorable, and royal supporters felt momentum was finally shifting back in his direction. Then almost immediately, fresh stories about Harry's parenting, Meghan's branding, celebrity support, and Archie's birthday suddenly dominated the conversation again. Critics argued the timing looked less like coincidence and more like deliberate counter-programming designed to redirect public attention. And at the center of all of it, once again, were the children. Archie connected to the birthday-themed candle, Lilibet connected to another. Family milestones becoming part of larger publicity cycles and business discussions online. For critics, that's why the word pawns keeps resurfacing in these conversations over and over again. To be clear, the criticism from observers is not that Harry and Meghan do not love their children. Even many critics would never argue that. The debate instead focuses on whether private family moments are becoming too closely tied to branding, publicity strategy, and image management in ways that continue fueling public controversy. And as these patterns continue repeating around birthdays, interviews, business launches, and media campaigns, more people online keep revisiting the uncomfortable question Thomas Markle raised years ago: whether the children are slowly becoming part of a larger public strategy they never chose to be involved in at all. For many critics watching this situation unfold, the argument is actually much simpler and much sadder than all the non-stop royal drama surrounding it. They believe the line between privately celebrating children and publicly using those moments for branding and publicity has slowly become so blurred that it barely even seems noticeable anymore. Author and royal commentator Tom Bauer, who has spent years covering the dynamics surrounding this family, once made a comment that continues getting repeated online whenever new controversies appear. He described Meghan as someone determined to find a way to come out on top no matter the situation, while the people left behind along the way eventually become secondary to the larger goal. Bauer pointed to a growing list of damaged relationships that critics frequently bring up in debates about the Sussex family story. He mentioned Meghan's strained relationship with her father, old friendships that reportedly faded away, her first marriage, and tensions with members of the royal family who initially tried to support Harry and Meghan before relationships later collapsed publicly. Then came the question that immediately grabbed headlines and spread everywhere online: when does Harry become the next one? For many royal watchers, that line became one of the most talked about observations surrounding the entire family conflict because it suggested even Harry himself could eventually face the same kind of distance and separation others reportedly experienced before him. But according to critics, there are two names missing from that conversation entirely: Archie and Lilibet. The children are still too young to speak publicly for themselves or explain how they may one day feel about growing up inside one of the world's most public family controversies. Archie is now 7 years old, while Lilibet is still very young. Yet before they are even old enough to fully understand branding, publicity, or online business culture, candles connected to their birthdays were already reportedly being marketed to the public. That detail especially unsettled many people online because it made the children's personal milestones feel connected to commercial strategy almost immediately. And while those products sparked online debate, another image continued hitting people emotionally: Thomas Markle sitting in Mexico still waiting for contact that has reportedly never arrived.
I don't think there's any problems that can't be worked out. I've said I'm sorry about the initial problem. She's taking advantage of a very weakened man and getting him to say things that you just shouldn't be saying.
Not the grandfather in the palace, surrounded by royal staff and headlines, but the elderly man watching family moments unfold through carefully selected social media posts instead of real life. 7 years. That's how long Thomas Markle has reportedly waited while watching his grandson grow up from the outside looking in. 7 birthdays viewed through polished Instagram photos, controlled public releases, and highly managed family updates shared with millions of strangers online. Years ago, Thomas publicly said he would wait patiently and hope one day the children might eventually reach out or reconnect. According to his own statements, he has kept waiting ever since. And with every birthday that passes without a phone call, an invitation, or even a simple response, critics argue the gap between the Sussexes' public messaging and the reality of these family relationships only appears to grow larger and harder for people to ignore.
Okay. All right. Am I there? I wonder. Okay. See you later. Bye-bye. Where is the little button? Okay, I gotta press the button.
Archie's 7th birthday post ended up becoming, for many critics, the perfect example of everything people have been arguing about for years. The edited photo discussions, the birthday-themed candles tied to commercial promotion, the carefully timed media coverage, and the article many readers believed indirectly criticized King Charles during a period when he was already dealing with serious health concerns. To critics online, the entire situation felt less like a simple family celebration and more like another highly managed public rollout built around headlines, branding, and image strategy. And while millions of people debated it online, one image quietly stayed in the background of the entire story. Thomas Markle sitting in Mexico, seeing those birthday photos on his phone at the same time as everyone else. An elderly grandfather reportedly learning about his grandson's life through social media updates, instead of personal family moments, became one of the most emotional parts of the conversation for many people watching from the outside. Especially after years of interviews where Thomas repeatedly said the children should never become pawns inside larger family conflicts or publicity battles. That word continues coming back because, according to critics, the concerns Thomas raised years ago now appear more visible than ever, not because anyone questions whether the children are loved, but because so many private family milestones continue becoming tied to public campaigns, branding conversations, media strategy, and global headlines. And as Archie and Lilibet grow older, many people believe these questions are only going to become harder to avoid. Children eventually grow up, they become curious. They ask questions about their family, their childhood, and the decisions adults made around them long before they were old enough to fully understand any of it. One day, Archie may look back at the headlines surrounding his birthdays, the public debates, the social media campaigns, the branding discussions, and the non-stop worldwide attention connected to moments that most children experience privately, and people online keep wondering how he might eventually feel about all of it. Will he see it as harmless publicity, smart media management, or will he question why so many deeply personal family moments became public content discussed by millions of strangers around the world before he even had the chance to form his own opinions? That's the larger question still hanging over this entire situation, not just what happened during one birthday week, but what purpose all these public moments ultimately served, who benefited from them, and whether the children themselves will one day feel comfortable with the role they unknowingly played inside such a massive public narrative. For 7 years now, Thomas Markle has continued putting his perspective on the record in interviews and public comments, even while facing criticism and backlash from many directions. And according to his supporters, the events surrounding Archie's 7th birthday only made more people revisit the warnings he has been making for a very long time. As the children continue growing older, the public debate surrounding privacy, branding, media strategy, and family relationships likely won't disappear anytime soon. If anything, many believe those conversations will only become louder with time. Thank you for watching all the way through and staying part of the conversation today. If this story gave you something to think about, make sure to leave a like because it really helps more people discover the channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and stay tuned for more updates and deep dives into stories everyone's talking about right now.